Okay, so you've decided to buy a football club. A team, a stadium, a manager, the roar of a packed stand on match day. It sounds like a dream you'd pay anything for. But here's the odd part. A football club might be the only business on earth with the most loyal customers in the world, and almost none of them will ever make you a profit. A fan doesn't walk away to a competitor because he didn't enjoy last season. He doesn't price compare you against the brand down the road. He inherits his love of the club from his father and hands it to his kids along with the family name. Demand here isn't something you win. It's wired into people from birth. And here's the strangest part of all. In football, winning makes it worse. The harder you chase the trophy, the more you're forced to spend chasing it, which means the one thing your fans crave most is the exact thing your accountant fears most. This is a business where clubs with 100 years of history vanish in a single season, and billionaires lose fortunes as if they're competing to see who can lose the most. By the end of this video, you'll understand exactly how football clubs actually make money, why the most loyal audience in the world still can't save the owner from bleeding cash, why a club isn't the business it looks like from the outside, and how much you can really make if you get it right. Football clubs come in three sizes, and they're three completely different businesses. A small club from the lower leagues can be bought for almost nothing. Barry, founded in 1885, was once sold for a single pound. The famous Wrexham, sitting in the fifth tier, was bought by Hollywood actors Ryan Reynolds and Rob McElhenney for a token sum. For that money, you get a small ground, a devoted town, and the obligation to plug a hole in the budget out of your own pocket every single month. A mid-sized club, a solid championship side, or a smaller Premier League team runs you tens to a few £100 million, and its entire existence bends toward one goal we'll come back to in a minute. And then there are the giants, where the price tag turns absurd. In 2022, a consortium led by Todd Boehly bought Chelsea for up to $5.2 billion. When Sir Jim Ratcliffe later bought roughly a quarter of Manchester United, the whole club was valued at more than $6 billion. But the purchase price is just the start. There are two costs nobody warns you about. The first is the squad itself. You're not buying a product you stock on a shelf once. You're buying a living group of players that ages, gets injured, and loses value, and has to be rebuilt over and over forever. The second cost is the trapdoor under your feet, the system of promotion and relegation. It's an external lever you barely control that can multiply or annihilate your revenue in a single afternoon. The Championship Playoff Final, the match for the last ticket into the Premier League, is called the richest game in world football for exactly this reason. Winning it is worth over $250 million to the victor. One match, 90 minutes. And there's a third thing nobody tells you, which only bites at the very top. You're not only bidding against other businessmen. Saudi Arabia's sovereign wealth fund owns Newcastle. Qatar transformed Paris Saint-Germain. Abu Dhabi rebuilt Manchester City. When your rival's owner is a country, the balance sheet stops being the point. At the top level, you are not always competing against another owner. Sometimes you are competing against a nation with a club badge on its chest. Now we get to the question that actually matters. Where does the money come from? A club has three income streams: matchday, broadcasting, and commercial. Matchday is the easiest to picture: the tickets, the food, the beer. But a 60,000-seat stadium only fills about 20 times a year and sits dark and expensive for the other 340 days. Broadcasting is where the real money is supposed to live. The Premier League's TV deal is worth almost $9 billion over 4 seasons, and even the club that finishes dead last, 20th, takes home more than $130 million. The team that wins the division one tier below earns roughly $13 million. Read that again. You can be the champion of an entire division and earn 10 times less money than the worst team in the division above you. Going up a single step multiplies your revenue tenfold overnight, and going down does the reverse. But here's the catch. Because every Premier League club gets that same enormous television check, the money doesn't make anyone richer. It simply inflates the price of players until it's gone. The thing that was supposed to save you funds an arms race you can't opt out of. The third stream is commercial, and this is where clubs convert fan love into cash, but not the way people assume. Everyone believes that signing a Messi or Ronaldo pays for itself in shirt sales. It doesn't. When a fan buys a 40-pound shirt, the kit maker, Nike or Adidas, keeps the overwhelming majority of it. and the club walks away with a royalty that's often somewhere between 5 and 15%. A superstar's real value isn't the cotton on the fan's back. It's the sponsor who'll pay tens of millions a year to sit on the front of a shirt watched by hundreds of millions of people. The preseason tour through Asia and America, the global brand. The shirt is the bait. The sponsor is the catch. And at the very top of the stand sits the club's version of the high roller. Walk into any modern arena and you'll find the ordinary fan in a plastic seat with a scarf and a 40-pound ticket. A few rows up behind glass sit the corporate boxes. Private dining, champagne, a perfect view. A few £100,000 a year each. Those premium seats are a tiny slice of the stadium and can throw off a huge share of the entire matchday take, which leaves the owner with an uncomfortable truth. Emotionally, the club needs the noise of the ordinary supporter, the singing, the color, the atmosphere that makes it watchable on television. Financially, it needs the silent man in the suite. The fans make the product, the corporations pay for it. Now the trap. In a normal business, wages are a line you control, maybe 20 or 30% of revenue. In football, player wages aren't a cost. They're the price of survival. UEFA's newer rules try to cap squad spending at 70% of revenue, and clubs blow straight through it, spending 80, 90, sometimes more than 100% of everything they earn just to pay the players. Picture a restaurant where the chefs and waiters quietly pocket every pound that comes through the till, and you're still left holding the bill for the rent, the food, and the loan on the building. That's a football club, so the whole model fits in one line. Broadcast tier times stadium capacity times brand reach times whether you stay in your division minus wage inflation. Every department in the building exists to push those first four numbers up. And the football side of the club, the part everyone actually cares about, automatically blows up the last one because the only way to win is to pay more than the club next door. It gets worse because of an accounting trick that hides the damage. When a club buys a player for £50 million on a 5-year contract, the books don't show $50 million gone. They show $10 million a year for 5 years. That's amortization. The fee is paid in the real world, but on paper, it melts slowly. This is why clubs like Chelsea started handing out 8-year contracts to smear a fee across as many seasons as possible and look tidy today. The problem is that a tidy page now is a buried mine for later, because the expense doesn't disappear. It just waits. Then there are the people who never kick a ball and still get paid like stars. Every signing, every sale, every contract renewal runs through an agent, and the agent takes a cut. In a single recent year, Premier League clubs paid a record amount of nearly $600 million to agents and middlemen. FIFA's own president complained that most of that money leaves football entirely. Close to $600 million in one league, in 1 year, for men who never scored a goal. And here's the thing worth sitting with for a second. None of these people guarantee you anything. Not the £100 million striker. Not the agent who brokered him. Not the accountant smoothing it across the books. You are spending more money than most companies will ever see on a result that nobody alive can promise you. A bounce of the ball, a referee's call, a torn knee in August, and the whole plan is gone. Underneath all of that is the simple cost of the club being a club. A match day is 60,000 emotional people who have to be stewarded, policed, and watched on hundreds of cameras. The pitch isn't grass, it's an engineering project, with underground heating and grow lights and a ground staff babysitting it through winter. The academy swallows millions a year and might not produce a single first-team player for a decade. The squad is insured like the fleet of assets it is, because one bad tackle can wipe out tens of millions in value. From the outside, a club looks like a game. From the inside, it runs like a piece of city infrastructure, a bank and a theater stacked on top of each other. So with the most loyal audience on earth, why do owners still lose money? Because almost everything is gone before profit. Last season, the Premier League earned record revenue of nearly $9 billion and still posted a combined loss of around $1 billion. 14 of the 20 clubs spent more on wages than they earned in total. Chelsea alone lost about $345 million, the biggest loss in English football history. And here's the cruel part. If you do somehow turn a profit, the fans don't celebrate. They riot, because a profit means you didn't sign anyone. In every other business, leftover cash is success. In football, it's treason. And sitting above all of it is the regulator, which can dock you points for losing too much, as it did to Everton and Nottingham Forest. The reliable revenue at the top is real. Everything beneath it is a knife fight. And it's in that knife fight that owners lose, almost always in one of three ways. The first is debt against a dream that never arrives. In the early 2000s, Leeds United reached a Champions League semi-final and borrowed heavily against the assumption it would happen every year. It didn't. The team missed out, the squad was sold for scraps, the club fell out of the top flight for years. Don't build a club on debt that needs the team to win every week. No team can. The second mistake is building for a level you can't feed. Darlington, averaging around 2,000 fans, somehow built a 25,000-seat stadium, which is like a village bakery installing an oven the size of an airport, and it didn't survive the ambition. Portsmouth won the FA Cup, kept spending like a giant, and became the first Premier League club to go into administration before crashing to the fourth tier. But the most expensive mistake of all is forgetting what your customers actually are. In 2021, 12 of the richest clubs in Europe tried to launch a closed Super League, copying the American model, removing relegation, locking in guaranteed matches and guaranteed television money. On a spreadsheet, it was flawless. Risk eliminated, revenue secured. They forgot that European football runs on exactly the thing they were deleting: the dream of going up and the terror of going down. Their own supporters revolted within hours. Fans blocked the team buses. Politicians threatened laws. The whole thing collapsed in 48 hours. If you treat fans like customers, they remind you that they were never customers. They're believers? Step back. The economics here are genuinely paradoxical. A fan will change his job, his city, even his spouse, but he will almost never change his club. The demand is permanent, and the owners still go broke at a rate that would terrify any sane investor. Because this is a business that doesn't optimize for profit. It optimizes for winning. Every dollar of revenue is under relentless pressure to be thrown back onto the pitch. The loyalty is rock solid. Everything you try to build on top of it is brittle. So, how much do you actually make? Two scenarios. The small lower league club costs almost nothing and loses you $1 million or $2 million a year, every year. You're not running a business, you're funding a community and buying a lottery ticket called promotion. The elite club earns hundreds of millions and can still post an operating loss, which is why the smartest modern owners stop pretending it's only about football. They turn the stadium into a year-round machine hosting heavyweight title fights, NFL games, and the biggest concerts on earth, so the building finally earns money on the 300 days nobody's playing. Even then, the real return was never the annual profit. Fenway Sports Group bought Liverpool for just under $500 million in 2010 and have watched it grow into a multi-billion-dollar asset. The Glazers paid about $1.5 billion for Manchester United and now sit on something worth around $6 billion. You don't buy a football club for the dividend. You buy one of the few dozen genuinely scarce trophy assets on the planet, and you wait. So if you do decide to buy a football club, remember the oldest joke in the sport. Want to make a small fortune in football? Start with a large one. It's almost always literally true. A football club is a terrible business and a magnificent asset. The cash flow bleeds, the balance sheet screams, the fans demand you spend every penny, the league threatens you with the drop, and somehow the thing itself is worth more every single year. Because everyone in this story thinks they're buying something different. The fans think they're buying hope. The players think they're buying trophies. The owner thinks he's buying a business. Almost all of them are wrong. They're buying an asset. And the only people who ever really make money are the ones who survive long enough to sell it.